Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're digging into a classic, the McKinsey 7S model. For decades, it's been this kind of secret weapon for leaders trying to manage massive change. We're going to look at how this one blueprint can really be the thing that separates total chaos from incredible success. So here's a question that probably keeps a lot of leaders up at night. You see a company that's at the top of its game, they seem totally invincible, and then, boom, they merge with another company or a new CEO takes over, and suddenly they're just fumbling. Why does that happen? What goes so wrong? Well, it pretty much always boils down to one single critical word: alignment. You have to think of a company less like a machine with a bunch of separate parts and more like a complex, finely tuned web. If you pull on just one single thread over here, say you introduce a new strategy, the vibrations from that pull can be felt absolutely everywhere else. And if you don't have a map to understand all those connections, a tiny change can set off a huge, cascading domino effect. And that map, well, that's exactly what the McKinsey 7S model was designed to be. It was actually developed way back in the late 1970s by consultants at McKinsey. They needed a framework to manage all that complexity and to guide organizations through change without everything falling apart. So what is it really? At its heart, the 7S model basically forces you to take a step back and look at your company as one whole system. It's a diagnostic tool that's built around 7 key elements that are all interconnected. And the goal isn't just to make a list of them. It's to see how they all work together, or how they're working against each other, especially when the pressure's on. Now, the model brilliantly takes all that potential chaos and organizes it into 7 simple elements. And yeah, they all conveniently start with the letter S. But what's really clever is how it splits them into 2 very different categories: the tangible hard elements, and the ones that are so often forgotten, the soft elements. And here they are. You've got strategy, structure, systems, skills, staff, and style all orbiting the outside. But just look at what's right there in the middle, the thing connecting every single one of them: shared values. This is the big idea of the model. A company's core values aren't just some plaque on the wall, they're the actual gravitational force that holds the entire system in balance. You know, this distinction is exactly where so many leaders get it wrong. They get obsessed with the hard S's, the strategy documents, the org charts, the IT systems, because you can touch them, you can measure them, they're concrete. But the soft S's, the culture, the people, the leadership style, these are the things that actually determine how work really gets done. They're way less tangible, and they're almost always where big change initiatives go to die. So let's quickly break down these hard S's. First, you've got strategy. That's pretty straightforward. It's your game plan for winning in the market. Then there's structure. Think of this as the skeleton of the company, the org chart, who reports to who. And finally, you have systems. These are like the bloodstream, all the daily processes and workflows that keep things moving, from how you run payroll to how you build your product. Now for the soft S's. They are just as important, but way harder to nail down. Skills basically represent your company's collective superpower. What's the one thing you are truly world-class at? Staff isn't just about how many people you have, it's about how you find them, how you develop them, how you motivate them. And style, that's the shadow that leadership casts. It's how managers actually behave day to day, and that's what sets the real tone for your culture. And it all comes back to that foundation: shared values. See, these aren't just fluffy mission statements. They're supposed to be the final check for every single decision. If your new cost-cutting strategy, which is a hard S, totally clashes with a core value of people first, a soft S, well, you're just engineering a conflict inside your own company. It's destined to fail. Okay, so the theory makes sense. But how does this actually work in the real world? Like, how do you take this framework and use it to fix a real problem? Let's walk through what that process actually looks like. Applying this model is really a focused 4-step process. First, you diagnose. You hold up a mirror to the organization and find the gaps, the misalignments. You ask questions like, does our current team structure even support the agile strategy we say we want? Second, you design the ideal state. What would perfect look like for us? This takes some real research. Third, you plan the changes. This is where you make the tough calls on what and who needs to change and how you'll do it. And finally, step 4, you implement. You actually execute the plan and make it all happen. But of course, no model is perfect. The 7S framework has been a cornerstone of management thinking for decades, for good reason, but it's really important to be clear-eyed about both its strengths and its weaknesses. Okay, on the plus side, it is an amazing tool for making sure everybody's pulling in the same direction, and it helps you see the ripple effects of a change before they turn into a tidal wave. But it has its downsides. It can be a slow, deliberate process, and we live in a world that demands speed. And maybe its biggest blind spot, it is very internally focused. So you could perfectly align your entire company for a market that's about to be completely disrupted by some external force you never even saw coming. To really see the power of this model in action, let's take one of the most difficult, high-stakes things a company can go through: a merger. This is where organizational design gets put to the ultimate test. So picture this. Your company just bought another one. Now you have two completely different cultures, two different org charts, two different sets of goals, all mashed together. If you're using the 7S model, what are the very first things you need to look at to stop this from becoming a total disaster? Right away, in a merger, the misalignment is obvious in at least three key areas. Your structure is instantly broken. You literally have two competing org charts. Your staff element is in complete turmoil, with teams that overlap and cultures that clash. And your strategy is fractured. The two companies probably had different goals that now have to somehow become one cohesive plan. And this is exactly where the 7S model gives you a roadmap out of that chaos, because it forces leaders to systematically think about everything, not just the org chart, but the different leadership styles, the competing IT systems, and the urgent need to create new shared values. It helps turn a messy, chaotic merger into a deliberate, streamlined process. Which leaves us with one final big question. The 7S model was designed in a very different era. Today, businesses are dealing with constant, rapid-fire disruption. So, can this classic blueprint for achieving internal stability and alignment, can it still guide the super agile, fast-moving businesses of tomorrow? That's a critical question for any leader trying to build an organization that's truly built to last.